The fire crackled low in the hearth. Its orange light danced across the old man's face. Shadows clung to the corners of the room, deep and long. Outside, the wind howled a mournful song. It was a sound that spoke of old pains and forgotten sorrows. The man leaned forward, his eyes fixed on the dying embers. He had seen many winters. He had seen the town of Middenfield rise and fall. He had seen darkness come and go like the tide. But this new chill in the air felt different. It felt personal. It carried the weight of a history that refused to stay buried, a legacy of blood that called out from the grave. He poked at the logs with a cold iron poker. Sparks flew up, bright and fleeting, like memories of a better time. He remembered when Middenfield was a place of hope, a place where people looked out for one another. But that was before the fight clubs, before the Croft family's name became a curse whispered in hushed tones. The old ways had been hard, but they were honest. Now a new kind of corruption was seeping back into the town's foundations. He could feel it in his old bones, a familiar ache that warned of a coming storm. The past was never truly gone. It was just waiting for its moment to return. The old man sighed, a plume of white breath in the cold air. He thought of the young ones, Silas, Leo. They were trying to build something new, something better. They carried the hopes of the town on their shoulders, but they also carried the burdens of their fathers. The sins of a previous generation were not so easily washed away. He wondered if they understood the true nature of the evil they faced. It was not just about fists and fury. It was about a darkness that lived in the heart, a poison that could turn brother against brother and twist love into hate. He feared for them. He feared for Middenfield. A log broke in the fire, sending a shower of embers onto the stone hearth. The old man watched them glow and then fade to black. Just like that, a life could be snuffed out. He remembered another night, long ago, a night of violence and loss, a night that had set the stage for all that was to come. The names had changed, but the story remained the same. It was a story of bloodlines and reckonings, and he knew with a certainty that chilled him to his core that another chapter was about to be written. The ghosts of Middenfield were stirring once more, and they were thirsty for vengeance.
Vincent Croft was not a ghost. He was flesh and blood, and he had returned to Middenfield to claim what he believed was his. He stood on the balcony of the old Croft Manor, overlooking the sleeping town below. The wind tore at his coat, but he did not feel the cold. All he felt was a burning sense of purpose. For years, he had lived in the shadow of his family's downfall. He had watched from afar as others tried to erase the Croft legacy. But a legacy like his was not so easily erased. It was written in the very soil of Middenfield, in the fear that still lingered in the hearts of its people. His motivation was simple. It was pure. It was revenge. He blamed Silas and his allies for the destruction of his family's empire. He saw their efforts to heal the town not as progress, but as an insult. They were building their new world on the ruins of his. He believed the Croft name meant power. It meant control. It meant that the strong had the right to rule the weak. His father had understood this. His grandfather had built an empire on this principle, and Vincent was here to restore it. He would not just rebuild the fight clubs, he would make them grander, more brutal than ever before. He would remind Middenfield what true power looked like. Vincent was different from the Crofts who had come before him. He was more patient, more cunning. He had studied his enemies. He knew their strengths and, more importantly, their weaknesses. He knew that Silas fought with a heavy heart, burdened by a desire for peace. He knew that Leo was driven by a fierce, but sometimes reckless loyalty. Vincent had no such burdens. His heart was cold and empty, save for the fire of his ambition. He saw emotion not as a strength, but as a fatal flaw. He would use their compassion against them, turning their best intentions into traps. Middenfield would not just fear him, it would kneel before him. He turned from the balcony and walked back into the grand, dusty hall of the manor. Portraits of his ancestors stared down at him, their eyes seeming to follow his every move. They were a lineage of predators, and he was the latest in that line. He was their bloodline reckoning. He would not fail them. He would purge the weakness from Middenfield. He would rebuild the Croft Circle, not as a secret club, but as a public spectacle of dominance. The town would be his arena, and its people, his players. The game was about to begin, and Vincent Croft had already decided who would win.
Middenfield was trying to heal. The scars of the old fight clubs ran deep, but a fragile peace had taken hold. Under my guidance, new initiatives were blossoming. Community centres were being built where underground arenas once stood. The old Croft warehouse, once a place of pain and brutality, was being converted into a youth sports facility. I poured all my energy into this project. I wanted to give the town's youth a different path. A path of discipline and sportsmanship, not of violence and despair. I hoped to replace the dark legacy of the past with a brighter future. It was a heavy weight to carry.
While Silas was the visionary, I was the protector. I ran a security firm that employed many former fighters, giving them a purpose and a steady wage. I taught them that their strength could be used to protect, not to harm. Together, he and I were changing the town, one person at a time. We were a symbol of hope, a testament to the idea that people could change, that a town could redeem itself. But the shadows of our own pasts were long, and the peace we had worked so hard to build was more delicate than we knew.
The town council, once paralysed by the Crofts' influence, now supported these projects. They saw the positive change in the community. Crime rates were down. People were starting to trust each other again. There was a sense of optimism in the air, a feeling that Middenfield had finally turned a corner. They celebrated us as heroes. But this new dawn was built on a shaky foundation. The roots of the old darkness were not fully gone. They were merely dormant, waiting for the right conditions to grow again. The town was healing, but it was not yet cured. I often found myself looking over my shoulder. I could not shake the feeling that our peace was temporary. I felt the weight of my own family's history, a history intertwined with the Crofts. I carried the guilt of my father's actions, and I fought every day to be a different man. This drive for redemption was my greatest strength, but also my greatest vulnerability. I wanted to believe that the fight was over. I wanted to believe that Middenfield was safe. But deep down, a part of me knew that the past was not finished with us yet. The quiet was just the calm before the storm.
The disappearances began subtly. A young man from the outskirts of town, known for his quick temper, vanished without a trace. Then another. They were troubled youths, the kind who might run off for a few days. The police filed reports, but there was no sense of urgency. People whispered, but no one connected the dots. Not at first, but I heard the whispers. My network of security guards spread across the town. They heard things. They saw things. They told me about a new energy in the town's underbelly. A nervous excitement, a sense of something coming. Then came the rumors of a new fight club. It was not like the old ones. This was different, more exclusive, more dangerous. The whispers called it the Croft Circle. The name sent a chill down my spine. I tried to investigate, but the trail always went cold. Those who knew anything were too scared to talk. The fear was back. It was a familiar, suffocating presence. This new club was operating in the shadows, preying on the desperate and the aggressive. It was a cancer, growing unseen beneath the surface of Middenfield's fragile peace. I knew I had to warn Silas.
I listened to Leo's report with a growing sense of dread. I had hoped this chapter was closed. I'd poured my soul into building a new Middenfield. The idea that the darkness was returning, stronger and more organized, felt like a personal failure. The disappearances, the whispers, the name Croft, it all pointed to one terrifying conclusion. Someone was deliberately undoing all our work. Someone was fanning the flames of the town's old sickness. The tension between my hope for the future and the pull of the past became a knot in my stomach. I felt the familiar call to violence, a feeling I had fought so hard to suppress.
The tension in Middenfield grew thick and heavy. People started locking their doors earlier. The optimism that had filled the streets began to evaporate, replaced by suspicion and fear. Parents warned their children to stay away from the old industrial district. The half-finished community center, once a symbol of hope, now seemed to mock us with its unfulfilled promise. The whispers grew louder. They spoke of a new master of the shadows, a Croft who had returned to claim his birthright. The town held its breath, waiting for the other shoe to drop, waiting for the darkness to finally show its face.
The challenge came not as a whisper, but as a roar. A video appeared online, spreading through Middenfield like wildfire. It showed a figure standing in a torch-lit ring, my face obscured by shadow. But my voice was clear, cold, arrogant, and filled with menace. I spoke of legacy, of birthright, of the weakness that had infected the town. I mocked Silas's community projects, calling them monuments to mediocrity. I called Silas a coward, hiding behind false piety while the true spirit of Middenfield withered and died. It was a declaration of war.
Vincent's message was direct and brutal. He announced the official return of the Croft Circle. He challenged Silas to face him, not just him, but his chosen champions. He laid out the terms, a series of one-on-one fights. If Silas and his fighters won, Vincent would leave Middenfield forever. But if Vincent's champions were victorious, Silas would have to publicly surrender the town. He would have to declare the Croft way as the true way. It was a theatrical, arrogant demand designed to humiliate Silas and force his hand. It was a trap, and everyone knew it. But it was a trap that was impossible to ignore.
I was torn. My first instinct was to refuse. To fight Vincent would be to play his game, to stoop to his level of violence. It would mean becoming the man I had fought so hard not to be. I had promised myself I was done with fighting. I had promised the town a new way. To accept the challenge would be a betrayal of everything I now stood for.
Silas, we have no choice. To ignore Vincent would be to show weakness. It would allow him to consolidate his power, to continue preying on the town's vulnerable youth. Refusing to fight is a victory for Vincent in itself.
The pressure mounted. The town was divided. Some begged Silas not to fight, to protect the peace he had built. Others, seduced by Vincent's rhetoric of strength, saw the challenge as a true test of leadership. They saw Silas's reluctance not as wisdom, but as fear. The weight of the decision pressed down on Silas, crushing him. He felt trapped between his ideals and the grim reality of the threat they faced.
In the end, it was the thought of more young people disappearing, of more families being torn apart, that made my choice. With a heavy heart, I accepted the challenge. I would fight, but I would do it on my own terms, with restraint and for the soul of Middenfield.
The Croft Circle was a nightmare made real. It was held in the cavernous, abandoned foundry on the edge of town, a place of rust and forgotten industry. Torches cast long, dancing shadows on the stone walls, creating a hellish atmosphere. A crowd had gathered, their faces a mixture of fear and, morbid curiosity. They were drawn to the spectacle, to the raw display of power that I promised. I stood on a raised platform, looking down on the ring like a Roman emperor. I was the master of ceremonies, the arbiter of pain. My presence filled the space, cold and absolute.
The first fight was a brutal introduction to Vincent's new order. One of my best men, Marcus, stepped into the ring. He was strong and disciplined, a product of my training. His opponent was a mountain of a man, a nameless brawler Vincent recruited for his sheer savagery.
The fight was short and merciless. Marcus fought with skill and technique, but his opponent fought with pure, unrestrained aggression. It wasn't a contest, it was a mauling.
The crowd gasped as Marcus was beaten down, his training and discipline just overwhelmed by brute force. It was a clear message from Vincent. Skill and honor meant nothing here. Only victory mattered. I watched in horror from the sidelines. I had trained Marcus, I believed in him. Seeing him so brutally defeated sent a shockwave of doubt through me. I had taught my men to use their strength with control, to be protectors. But here in the Croft Circle, that control was a weakness. Vincent had found fighters who had no restraint, who fought with a primal rage that was terrifying to behold. I felt a surge of fury, a real urge to just jump into the ring myself, but I held back, jaw clenched. I knew that's what Vincent wanted. He wanted us to lose control, to become the monsters he believed we were.
I stood beside Leo, my face a mask of cold calm. But inside, a storm was raging. I saw the look in the crowd's eyes. I saw the fear, but I also saw the excitement. Vincent was not just putting on a fight. He was stoking the darkest impulses of the town. He was reminding them of a time when might made right. Each blow that landed on Marcus was a blow against everything I had tried to build. It was a systematic dismantling of my ideals. The physical challenge was immense, but the emotional and psychological warfare was even greater. This was Vincent's true arena, and, well, we'd just stepped into it.
The second fight was mine. After the brutal defeat of Marcus, the atmosphere in the foundry was thick with dread.
Leo, step up. Let's see if the heart of Middenfield's protectors can withstand the fire.
Vincent, smirking from his platform, announced my name with a theatrical flourish. He wanted to break our spirit, and I was at the heart of that spirit. I took a deep breath and stepped into the ring. My opponent was a fast, wiry fighter, moving like a viper. It was clear he'd been chosen to counter my powerful, direct style. Vincent wasn't just choosing brawlers, he was choosing strategists of violence.
The fight was about to begin, and the stakes felt impossibly high.
The bell rang, and we circled each other. I was cautious, remembering what happened to Marcus. I stuck to my training, blocking and parrying, just looking for an opening. But this guy was relentless. He darted in and out, landing quick, stinging blows to my ribs and legs. The crowd roared with every hit. I could feel my frustration mounting. I was stronger than him, but I couldn't land a clean punch. Over all the noise, I could hear Vincent's mocking laughter. I was being played with, humiliated. The fighter was trying to make me angry, to make me reckless. A sharp kick caught me off guard, sent me stumbling back against the ropes. My opponent moved in for the finish, a flurry of strikes aimed at my head. In that moment, something inside me just snapped. The frustration, the anger at seeing Marcus beaten, the fury at Vincent's arrogance, it all boiled over. I let out a roar and abandoned my technique. I charged forward, swinging with all my might. I wasn't a disciplined protector anymore. I was a brawler, fighting with the same wild rage as the man I once was. I connected with a powerful blow, sending my opponent staggering back. The crowd went wild. But as I stood over him, ready to land the final blow, I saw my own reflection in a pool of water on the foundry floor. I saw the rage in my own eyes. I saw the monster Vincent wanted me to be, and I stopped. The realization hit me like a physical blow. Winning this way was not a victory. It was a surrender to Vincent's philosophy. With a deep breath, I stepped back. I had won the physical exchange, but I had almost lost the battle for my soul. I looked up at Vincent, not with anger, but with a newfound clarity. I would not become what I hated. This moment of restraint was my true victory, a silent defiance that Vincent, in his lust for brutality, could never understand.
Finally, it was my turn. The main event. The whole town seemed to be holding its breath as I walked towards the ring, the weight of Middenfield on my shoulders. I felt the fear, the anger, the hope of every person in the crowd. I wasn't just fighting for myself or for Leo. I was fighting for the very idea of a better Middenfield.
I descended from my platform and stepped into the ring to face Silas. No announcer, no bell, just the tense silence of the foundry, broken by the crackling of the torches.
The two of us, heirs to opposing legacies, stood face to face. The fight began. It was a clash of styles, a clash of philosophies. Vincent was a whirlwind of controlled violence, his movements precise and deadly. He fought with the cold, calculated fury of a predator. I was a rock, defensive, measured, absorbing Vincent's attacks. I moved with a heavy heart, every block and parry a testament to my reluctance. I did not want this fight. I was fighting not to win, but to endure. To prove that strength wasn't about how much pain you could inflict, but how much you could withstand without breaking. I was a wall against Vincent's tide of hate.
Fight me! Show me the animal your family tried to hide!
Vincent snarled, landing a sharp blow to my jaw. But I just absorbed the blow, my eyes filled not with anger, but with a deep, profound sadness. I saw the pain behind Vincent's rage. I saw a man trapped by his own bloodline, consumed by a legacy of violence he couldn't escape. I wasn't just fighting Vincent, I was trying to save him from himself.
The climax came not with a knockout blow, but with a choice. Silas saw an opening. Vincent, in his frustration, had overextended himself. Silas could have ended the fight right there. A single powerful counter-punch would have been enough. The crowd saw it. I saw it. For a fleeting second, the old instinct screamed at him to take it, to finish it.
But I held back. Instead of striking, I grabbed Vincent, pulling him into a close hold. "It's over," I whispered, my voice strained. "This doesn't have to be you. We don't have to be our fathers." In that moment of restraint, I won the war. I had proven that true strength was the power to choose peace, even in the heart of violence. In the aftermath of the final confrontation, the spell of the Croft Circle was broken. My act of restraint had been more powerful than any punch. It showed the crowd a different kind of strength, one that didn't rely on brutality. Vincent, defeated not by force but by compassion, was taken into custody. His empire of fear, built on anger and revenge, crumbled into dust.
The fighters Vincent recruited scattered. The whispers died down, and honestly, a quiet sense of relief washed over Middenfield. The storm had passed, leaving behind a clear sky. The town could finally, truly begin to heal.
A few weeks later, a new memorial was unveiled in the town square. Not a statue of a warrior or a hero, but a simple, polished stone fountain. Its flowing water became a symbol of cleansing and renewal. It was dedicated to all the victims of the violence, a quiet acknowledgement of our painful past. But it was also a promise for the future, a promise to remember, but also to move forward.
Silas and I stood before it, watching as children played nearby. The sound of their laughter was a more beautiful sound than any cheering crowd. It was the sound of peace.
The old Croft foundry, the site of the brutal fights, wasn't torn down. Instead, the community rallied together. They scrubbed the floors, painted the walls, and installed bright lights. The ring was dismantled, and in its place they built a stage for community theatre and music. The place of darkness was transformed into a place of art and togetherness.
It became a powerful symbol of Middenfield's resilience. It showed that any place, no matter how dark its history, could be reclaimed by the light. The legacy of the Crofts was finally being overwritten by a new story, one written by the community itself.
As the sun set on Middenfield, casting a warm glow over the new memorial, I felt a sense of peace I had never known. The fight was finally over. The ghosts of the past had been laid to rest, not through violence but through choice and compassion. I knew there would always be challenges, there would always be shadows, but now the town had a new strength, a strength found not in fists but in community, in resilience, in hope. The legacy of blood had been answered, and in its place a new legacy, one of hope and redemption, had just begun to grow. The future of Middenfield was bright.